This video covers civil rights and civil liberties, focusing on social movements and equal protection under the law. These topics explore how different groups have fought for their rights and how the government has responded through laws and Supreme Court rulings. Social movements are collective efforts by groups of people to create change in policies, culture, or laws. They often focus on civil rights, social justice, or equal protection under the 14th Amendment. Key social movements: civil rights movement from the 1950s to the 1960s. The goal was to end racial segregation and discrimination, ensure voting rights, and achieve full legal equality for African Americans. Key events include Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, which declared racial segregation in schools unconstitutional. The Montgomery bus boycott from 1955 to 56, sparked by Rosa Parks, led to desegregation of public transportation. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited racial discrimination in public places, employment, and schools. Finally, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 banned literacy tests and other discriminatory voting practices. Women's rights movement. The goal was to achieve gender equality in voting, employment, education, and reproductive rights. Key events include the 19th Amendment in 1920, which gave women the right to vote. Title IX in 1972 banned sex discrimination in federally funded education programs. And Roe v. Wade in 1973 protected women's right to abortion under the right to privacy. The LGBTQ+ rights movement aimed to secure equal rights and legal protections for LGBTQ+ individuals. Some key events include the Stonewall riots in 1969, which sparked the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement. Then there was Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015, which legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, and more recently Bostock v. Clayton County in 2020, which ruled that discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity in the workplace is illegal. The Latino and Hispanic rights movement fought for civil rights, better wages, and protections for Latino and migrant workers. Key events in this movement include the United Farm Workers movement in the 1960s, led by Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, which aimed for better labor conditions. Another significant event was Mendez v. Westminster in 1947, which challenged school segregation for Mexican-American students. And in 2012, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, provided protections for undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as children. The Native American rights movement focused on preserving tribal sovereignty, land rights, and cultural heritage. Key events include the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924, which granted U.S. citizenship to Native Americans. In the 1960s and 70s, the American Indian Movement, or AM, advocated for native rights sovereignty and an end to discrimination. And in 1990, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act required museums to return indigenous cultural items. The disability rights movement aimed to achieve accessibility, equal employment, and educational opportunities for people with disabilities. Key events in this movement include the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which prohibited discrimination based on disability in federally funded programs. Additionally, the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 ensured equal access to employment, transportation, and public spaces. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, is the foundation for equal protection. It states, "No state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Courts evaluate equal protection cases using different levels of scrutiny. Strict scrutiny is the highest standard and is used for cases involving race, national origin, religion, or fundamental rights, such as voting. The law must serve a compelling government interest and be narrowly tailored. An example of this is the landmark case of Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, which struck down racial segregation. Intermediate scrutiny. This level of judicial review is used for gender discrimination cases. The law must serve an important government interest and be substantially related to that interest. A notable example is Craig v. Boren in 1976, where the court struck down different drinking ages for men and women. Rational basis review, which is the lowest standard of judicial scrutiny. This is used for economic policies and other non-protected categories. For a law to pass this review, it must be rationally related to a legitimate government interest. An example is Railway Express Agency v. New York in 1949, where the court upheld a law banning advertising on delivery trucks. Landmark Supreme Court cases on equal protection. Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896 upheld segregation under the separate but equal doctrine. Brown v. Board of Education in 1954 overturned Plessy, declaring segregation unconstitutional. Loving v. Virginia in 1967 struck down laws banning interracial marriage. Regents of the University of California v. Baker in 1978 limited affirmative action but allowed race to be a factor in college admissions. United States v. Virginia in 1996 required Virginia Military Institute to admit women. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned discrimination in public places, employment and schools. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 protected voting rights, banning literacy tests. Title IX in 1972 prohibited gender discrimination in federally funded schools. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, in 1990 required accessibility for people with disabilities. Affirmative action policies are aimed at increasing diversity and opportunities for historically marginalized groups. The controversy here is that some argue affirmative action is necessary for equality, while others see it as reverse discrimination. A recent development in 2023 saw the Supreme Court striking down affirmative action in college admissions in Students for Fair Admissions v. Harvard. Social movements have played a crucial role in shaping equal protection under the law. The 14th Amendment has been a key tool for challenging discrimination and expanding civil rights. While progress has been made, debates over affirmative action, voting rights and gender equality continue today.